NFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatterspodcast1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.
Taste with you, well, you've gone sour. You want the world plus everything, but you won't work an hour. And now your questions are guilt creeping, and you're going buying flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I wanna allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Just shut your mouth.
I always laugh when I hear the professionals' music. We think we're going to fall out. Shut your mouth. Wow, couldn't be more apt, the lyrics of the long sound songs of the way things are going at Newcastle during this pre-season and this transfer window. But welcome to Stu, welcome to Mitch, welcome to you guys. And yes, still no resolve in the Alexander Isak situation either. And Robert Adams has emailed us, as you can do. We keep plugging this, and we've received a lot of fan mail, emails, whatever you want to call it. And you can email us too, nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. But I will read Robert. He says, while I appreciate Isak may be feeling let down by the situation he finds himself in, and no one outside the club really knows what's going on behind the scenes, however, I think things must be addressed regarding the situation. Firstly, the club has been so inept regarding transfers over the last 3 windows, and more so this window. We screwed around with Palace and Burnley and ended up with out. Well, PSR seems to have had a lot to do with this. We keep shooting ourselves in both feet regarding transfers. I doubt if the club will do much more business, if any, this window. As regards to the Isak situation, I'd be inclined to take various stances. First, I would do what other clubs have done to us and keep pushing up the price, get as much money as possible. Second, if nobody is willing to reach our re-evaluation and he still insists on a transfer, make him train with the under-21s till January and sell him then for 150 million. If he doesn't want to play for us anymore, there is no reason to keep him with the first team, especially if we're unable to sign a replacement. Thirdly, he's under contract for another 2.5 to 3 years, so there's no immediate urgency to sell him. We hold most of the cards regarding this matter. Firstly, I think clubs outside the so-called top 6 should work together to sort out this debacle that is called the Premier League. Newcastle, Forest, Villa and Everton have all been hard done by over recent seasons, and nothing is being done about it. It's as if the league and top 6 have carte blanche to do as they please. Even over recent seasons, Man City seem to be immune to any sanctions regarding their transgressions, and failing that, these clubs and others should push the limits en masse and see how far the Premier League are willing to go. This kind of restriction would never be allowed in any other business. I hope something can be resolved with Isak, but I feel it's too late. Yours, Robert Adams. Thank you, Robert, for that. Stu, those of the NUFC Matters fan base who follow you on social media will have seen that you are making and have been making some quite concise notes. So we'll come to you first, mate. What on earth have you made of the last 7 days, or 8 days as we're a day late at Newcastle United?
I'm not so sure if they're concise, but I've made notes. Just add on to Robert's. Sometimes we can be guilty of looking at things from only one perspective, and where you get a more balanced opinion is by looking from the other person's point of view. And in no way am I advocating Alexander Isak and his apparent behaviour. Now, again, there's been nothing confirmed. But in your line of work, if you've been promised a promotion or a pay rise and told you're going to get better working conditions, and then said, okay, we'll fix it again at the end of the working year. And then it just gets ignored. The working conditions didn't improve. In fact, they got worse. And well, you've got every right. And then another company comes to you and says, right, we're going to give you double your money. Come and work for us. So I'm not excusing him, but I can understand why his head's turned. But I'll go through my notes because what happened, well, what everyone's aware of what's been happening. But last Thursday, I just wrote a couple of bullet points down. And then on Friday, as you lads know, I had to end up having a bit more time than what I should have had. Had to literally put my feet up. And I started writing a couple of more things. And then I watched the Amigos, started writing a couple of more. And then I just scrapped them all. And then I went through everything and put it on, which is now 4 bits of paper. So I'll go through them, and whether people agree with them, they'll say it. And if they don't, they'll say it. But this is my thoughts at the time. I'll try and do it chronologically, but it's, as normal, it'll probably be scattergun, and you'll just have to try and keep up with this. So I'll go through it. The 2 words I used last week, and I repeated it on at least 3 or 4 occasions, was overwhelming frustration. And there's, for me, I'm not speaking on behalf of the fan base, but reading and listening, I feel like everyone believes they've been misled. They've had their hopes dashed. And in any walk of life, if that happens to you, the natural reaction is to come out swinging, isn't it, to what it should be. So if you think about it, we were told we were going to sign Ekatike, and he was going to play alongside Isak. We were allowed to dream, weren't we? And there's a general feeling that we've been lied to now because of what's happened since. There's been the lack of communication has added to the overwhelming frustration, the lack of leadership, the lack of professionalism. And it appears we're now in an abyss floating around, drifting aimlessly. And we thought those days were in the past and never to return. And I think that's causing a lot of the anger. It's not about our star centre forward wanting to better himself. Everyone who plays for that club should want to better themselves. And they've been on a journey, and it seems like it's come to the terminus where there's no next destination because the people in charge aren't showing them, look, there's a few more stops on the line yet. They talked about it initially, but not now. So as I said, it's not even so much Isak wanting to better himself. Ambition is good, and he's worthy of more money. And we, for the last couple of years, especially the last couple of years, have been bragging about how we've got the best centre forward in the league, in Europe, in the world. He should get paid more money. And we know why he's not, or the main reason why he's not, but he should get paid more money. He's entitled to it. But for me, the biggest, and I'll rephrase what I did, right, because what I did say was the biggest kick in the swingers is what I've wrote on my thing there. I don't know if you can see it. 5th is the new first. And what everyone should be concerned about is if we can't break into that top 4, the way they've spent, the 4 that finished top last season, and the way they've spent this summer, then if we can't do it, nobody else can. And that should worry everybody who supports football. And it really, really should. Because it seems to be, well, I'll move on. I've probably written it somewhere else. Emotionally, we're hurt. Mentally, we're coming to terms with it. And in fear of sounding like guerrilla clubs, which I never thought I'd say what he said when he said anyone but Newcastle, I'm in the camp of anyone but Liverpool. The stooges in the media, the underhand tactics, the official courting is tantamount to illegal bullying, in my opinion. And then I go on to say, but I do believe we will sign 3 or 4 more players before the window closes. Not who we ideally wanted, but this is how it is now. We either accept it or fight it. And as fans, we want to fight it, but there seems to be an air of acceptance. If you read the media, the way they go on, it reminds me of when you're playing football at school and you had to pick like 4 or 5 teams, and the best players were the captains, and they could pick their favourites, and then it come down to who was left. So the way this transfer windows went is the top 4, 5, or even 6. Well, you take Tottenham out, but say the top 4 or 5. When I'm talking about the top 4 or 5, I'm not talking about league positions. I'm talking about wealth. they've been able to pick who they want, and we wanted them. We shouldn't really be chastised for wanting to compete, wanting to be at the top table, wanting the best players, because that's the ultimate goal. But we've had our arses handed to us, and for want of a better phrase, it seems like they've got to take their pick and the window's split in two. Once they've finished buying who they want, then we can go. So once their business is concluded, then we get to choose, and then we start fighting with other teams, and we then start coming out with, well, we're better than them, we're bigger than them, so we should get the player before them. That's exactly what's happening to us. So we can't have it both ways. But switching discussion, we should genuinely covet anyhow, not criticise him, which I've seen some people do, because I genuinely can't think of a manager who could have achieved what he has with the mess behind the scenes. And how many would have walked? How many managers with less dignity would have walked? Because if he did, I don't think many could say, I don't blame you. His work, I don't think his work will be fully appreciated until he's gone. And as I said, but the best of the rest is the realistic new goal. Fifth is the new first, as I've written on there. Top four are clear. We're in a league with Man United, Spurs, Villa, West Ham, Everton, whoever, for the rest, and the rest of them for the foreseeable future. So then I wrote some questions which people need to understand or answer these questions. I know it sounds stupid, but answer the questions when asked them. No one else can hear you. But has Isak signed for Liverpool? I think that's a no. Have Liverpool bid for Isak? I also think that's a no. Is he willing to forfeit his loyalty bonuses by doing so? No. So he hasn't put a transfer request in, has he? Then, is he contracted to us until 2028? That he signed, that his agent signed, and they were very happy to do so. The answer is yes. However, is he showing loyalty to his colleagues and to the fans? No, he's not. Have the club been steadfast in their not for sale stance? Well, when you do get sound bites from the club, that's all they've said. He's not for sale. And that has come from the very top. And they're scared to say anything different. If the chairman says he's not for sale at any price, then he's not for sale at any price. Then there was a tweet I put out earlier in the week, so I've added a couple of names to it. Ronaldo, the Portuguese one, not the naturally gifted Brazilian one. Gerrard, Rice, Suarez, Kane, all of these people wanted to leave the clubs that they were at whilst they were contracted. And they were sought after. There was a media frenzy around them, but their clubs stood strong. And they managed to sit them down, get them around the table and convince them to stay for at least one more year. And in some cases longer, in some cases forever. And for me, they showed respect and loyalty to the club that made them to what they were. Could Isak do the same on improved terms? I don't know. But the thing is, I keep going back, is he a top shelf striker? Yes, he is. And we are, the only guilt that we should have is supporting Newcastle United with a passion that burns deeply inside. So of course it hurts. If he was an average player, it wouldn't matter us. It wouldn't bother us at all. It's because we know he's one of two world-class players we've got. And we know the trajectory that we've been on over the last 3 or 4 years will just start declining simply by losing one player. And I know people will say no player's bigger than the club, but at this stage, it would benefit us more if we could get him signed up, even on the understanding, right, you'll go next year. And I'll repeat, anyone but Liverpool. Next year, I think Bayern Munich will need a replacement for Kane. I think Barcelona need a replacement for Lewandowski. Sell them to one of those. Don't sell them to, we can't say a direct competitor because they are a level above us, not just in history, not just in heritage, not just in trophies, but in league positioning and financial earnings, everything. At the moment, it's a bitter pill to swallow because that's where we want to be, but Liverpool are above us. So does everyone remember, well, I can't even read my own writing there, what I said at the start of the window? And this is not me saying I'm right, but I was, about Fabrizio Romano. Because there was a swell of public opinion saying, oh, he said it, so it must be true. And I warned everyone that he was a stooge, He was paid initially by Barcelona to start spreading stories, and he'll start doing it. Now, over the last 2 weeks, I think the vast majority of people have cottoned on to the fact there's no way on God's earth he's not getting some money from Liverpool. That's my opinion, just in case anyone's watching, Steve. And if they want to sue us, they can, because I can prove otherwise. So if it's quite clear that there's people in that are, shall we say, strategically placed in the press to whip up a frenzy, to build momentum, yet they still haven't made a bid. So how can you sell someone that to nobody? You can't sell anyone to anybody. But the thing is, the next question, does the cartel-friendly media applaud the stances that Crystal Palace took last year, if you remember, last summer? Well done, Crystal Palace. Don't be bullied by Newcastle. If it's your player, you do what you need to do. You keep him. Remember that? Because that's what was being said. But now we're holding a player back. We're imprisoning a player because it doesn't suit their narrative. Brentford's the same at the moment, isn't it, with Wissa? No, it's their right. He's their player. He can do what they want. But when it suits them, because they get more clicks, which feeds their salaries, etc., all of a sudden it's... See, there's a comment there saying he's on strike. That's not been officially said. There's no way he said, I'm not playing for this club anymore, because that would have come out. There's no way he's asked for a transfer request, because that would have come out. He wanted to explore his options. I'll come on to that, because it's quite clear for me his options are, I want to explore my other options. Okay, these are your options, Alexander. You're with us for the next 3 years, because that's what you're signed for. So if you want options, you can go to Saudi. You are not going to Liverpool. Or you can stay with these people who have helped you score the goals, who've put them on a plate for you, and you'll give us 1 more year, and we'll be mature about it. And then we'll sell you on our terms, if you're to be sold. But not when you decide. Because if we decided not to pay you anymore, you'd be the first one to complain about it. So basically what that is, don't be fooled by what you read in the media. Everything has an agenda to it. And because we're a passionate fan base, we're suckers for it, and we bite too easily. And we're too quick to criticise, to call people names and fight with corner, which is what we're meant to do. Now, this is my very early Christmas list to Yasser Al-Rumayyan, and it's what I'd like to happen. But to be fair, I'll go through it quickly. There's only a few points. It can be achievable. At a stretch, it can be achievable, but it's probably what most of us would want to happen and give us that pride back, that we've always got the pride and support Newcastle, and Mitchell vouched for that. We've stood there on a Monday night watching us play Stoke away, Burnley away, with a midnight kickoff in a bar with about 3 people looking at us going, when we're going, Raj, when we've scored a goal away at Stoke. Remember the Denver Bar hat-trick one? You know, we've done all that. We've done it, but we've always got the pride. But to now walk with your shoulders back and say, yeah, I support Newcastle. And people come up to you and say, I like your shirt, or your team's doing well. To give us that bit back, questions, or what I'd like to happen to His Excellency Yasser Al-Rumayyan. And this is difficult because emotion occasionally overrides logic. But here I go. Accountability for non-performance, that's in the boardroom. Because if there's non-performance on the pitch, Eddie Howe is the one that's held accountable. He has to make changes to improve the on-pitch performance. So ultimately, the PIF have to look at the non-performance or the very poor performances off the pitch and make the changes, because that's how they do business. And this is what's mystifying me, that they've allowed this to go to this stage. Maybe they've been hoodwinked. Maybe they've been misled that everything was rosy in the garden. Maybe they put too much trust in people. But I've got a feeling that's about to change in the not too distant future. So I would like someone to take ownership off the field and sort out the coining of Simon Jordan phrase, the best in class appointments. Next one, follow the lead from Mariganakis, the Forest chairman. Take a stance, what he did when the big 6 stole week, and just take whoever won from you. Yeah, we know that this isn't your contract. We know there's a get-out clause in your contract. There isn't one in Isak's contract. So they have to come to us with a bid. But the way the Forest chairman did it, you are trading illegally, I'll complain about you. He then sat down with a player, sold him a new vision, signed him up on new improved terms. I would love someone from our club to do that with Isak. And none of this, he's done his bit, Think about why he's doing it. He's been fed so much bullshit over the last 2 years. He's got to the point of thinking, I can't progress with this club. And you can't hold him for wanting to be better. But you can question how he's done it if you believe the media. You can't pick and choose of which part of the media you want to believe. So give Isak a pay rise. That's what I would say, to show him that he's valued. He'll come back in. He'll be welcome back in the group because they know they're better with him. He is the tip of our spear. He is the one that the whole game plan's around. He executes everything that goes to it. And if we then say pride comes before a fall, but just as bite our nose, to cut our nose, to spite our face, etc., we then have to find someone new to replace him. We're going further and further down the list. Then we have to train them. By that time, we're into October, we're into Champions League games, and the season's gone. If we can get him back on tune with a pay rise and say, there you go, that's what you're worth, that's what we do. But there is another way around it. Get some effing sponsors in. Now, I don't think people have heard those words from me before. Probably every single show we've done over the last 2 years. But get those sponsors in because, if you remember the show we did after the cup final and where everyone was celebrating, and I said, this is really now the time you grow in a position of strength and get these sponsors in now. And I was called negative. And I was called stop mode and you should be happy. And I was happy. I was delighted. Mitch was with us. I was delirious. But I could see what was coming. And I could see that some people would just sit in their hands and think everything's okay. And if you stand still, you go backwards. And we've stood still off the field. And Eddie Howe's been let down terribly by it. But if you get the sponsors in, it alleviates a lot of the financial fair play issues. And we can then start paying people. Whether that's Riyadh Air, whether it's Aramco, whatever. I think we've mentioned on plenty of shows here, those ways we can generate money and quickly. Then sign Paqueta, who was apparently going cheap. Sign Gay, blow Liverpool out the water with this new sponsorship money we've got. Sign Wisa, sign a goalkeeper. And I know today, or just this afternoon, we've had a difference of opinion behind the scenes as well. We've been linked with Aaron Ramsdale. I said that last summer. I would be happy with him. I would be happy with him, but that's just my personal opinion, and I know many will disagree. So announce again, we are here to compete. I would love the chairman to do an interview and say, we are here to compete, and reiterate, we will be number one. With a steely look in his eye, with belief in his voice, that we will be where not sound bites, not just things that we want to hear, but say it and mean it, and then start delivering. They'll put the wheels in motion. Also, like state intentions on a new stadium, someone to come out and actually communicate with us. You know, the ones that are buying these shirts, the trainers that we bought last week that you can buy next week, everything else that we do because of our love for the club. Say, we want to build a stadium. This is where we want to build it. Instead of letting rumours go around, this is the stage we're at. We're waiting on final things from the city council, but we're confident. And turn the screw not onto us, away from us. When I say us, I mean the club. Turn it away from the club and point it where it should be, instead of sitting there thinking that our loyalty is just there to be taken for granted. And then the last thing I wrote down was challenge legally the merits of PSR. Actually challenge it. Don't have to take it to court. Question it publicly. And if someone like Yasser Al-Rumayyan question it publicly, you watch them scurry behind the scenes. You watch the tweaks that'll be changed. Because if they've had trouble with Man City, God knows what would happen if he really, 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 really got himself upset by it all. There's Trevor from Thailand. Had enough drink, Trev, good on you. So it's fanciful, but it's possible. And is it possible? Absolutely is. So they're my thoughts. But if someone in Thailand who's in the middle of the night drinking his beer doesn't agree with us, that's fine, because there's probably thousands that don't. There might be thousands that do, but I'm on this show because you've asked me to give my opinion, and that's my opinion. So I've said enough now. I'll leave you with Mitch.
1,331 watching live, and lots of positive comments in. It's easy to pick out negative comments, but the positive comments have been coming in thick and fast. And there's, listen, everyone who has an opinion about Newcastle United, I've always said on here, it is valid. We like to hear people's opinions in the chat. We like to hear people's comments on the show. And, from our perspective, it is all about opinions. Mitch, what did you make of Stu's notes? And thanks, Stu. I've put on record. Thank you so much for taking the time to write that. It really is appreciated by me, and it was great to hear. And it was well put together, well constructed, very much like your stuff that you submit to the fans in. Stu, Mitch. Sorry.
Whenever Stu gets the pen out and he starts to really think about where he wants to go with something, it's always interesting and very difficult to disagree. We've been left with so many difficult situations at the moment, all of which impact on the club negatively in some way, shape or form, all of which are impacting on the fan base and the morale of the fan base in some way, shape or form. The bottom line for me is right now, today, would have been a great opportunity for the chairman to make something publicly heard. He's been at the Live Golf at JCB. It's only, 2.5, 3 hours down the road. Perfect opportunity to make that statement. Where's the statement? It's really time that we need to have something strong, directly attributable to those who are making decisions regarding our football club, because we've got a lot going on at the moment, and it's a bit like the Keystone Cops. Behind the scene, what's going on with the CEO appointment, what's going on with the director of football appointment. The transfers seem all over the place. This is where certainly I disagree with Stu. Ramsdale's relegated 3 bloody clubs. And we've got a full goalkeeping room already. Until that goalkeeping room, and I stand by what I said at the start, for me, the entire goalkeeping room needed clearing out and started all over again for me. I don't see what Ramsdale brings that the Greek lad doesn't bring, other than experience of being relegated in the Premier League. And that really is super frustrating. I do agree with, if Isaac wants to explore his options, we tell him what his options are. You and your team negotiating a move to one of these clubs in these positions and get us 150 million plus, or you're going nowhere and you're not going to Liverpool, because you've still got time to really sit tight. He's timed this ridiculously. And if you look at these interviews post winning the Carabao Cup and the stuff on the stage, and then to where it's at now, what's going on? What changes that much? And is everything in the background really that disruptive? And also, you then a penny for the thoughts of what other senior players. I thought Trippier's comment today was very, very mature. As a player who's had his own problems to deal with in the last couple of years. Eddie Howe, like I've said before, very rarely misspeaks. And I hear the words, no chance of him joining the Asia Tour. That's a pretty significant negative. It's a pretty significant negative. I find that concerning. And yes, the club has to still function in whichever way it does. And I know it isn't a good look advertising brand new trainers or what have you. And I mean, I feel sorry for the Korean kid that was signed to have everything going on the day of his announcement. That ended up probably much further under the radar than it should have been. And for him, probably not the day it could have been. And that's a shame. because parts of the club still have to function. It still has to go on. Some of these things will be on timelines and dates that they've absolutely got to hit, and things have to be done. But then you look at the away ticketing announcement today and the fallout from that. And again, it shows that there seems to be a lip service to communication, and beyond that, a void, and definitely a growing level of uncertainty and mistrust sweeping through the fan base towards the intentions of the club going forward. And so this all could be changed in a matter of days, with a strong statement from the chairman, with signings coming in of significance, and the mood could probably change very, very quickly. In fact, I think it would, because I think at the minute we're sort of teetering on the edge. It's like we've started climbing Everest, and we've got to a difficult sort of waypoint where we'll take a step backwards. We might fall all the way back down to base camp, but if we keep going and hang on in there, there's an opportunity to get to the peak. But we need more proper hands on the tiller direction from the chairman, from our owners, so we are clear on the direction that this club is going in. Like I say, I think Isaac's overplayed his hand too early. We genuinely hold the cards here. I know it doesn't feel like it, but that's thanks to the way that, various paid media, etc., are whipping up a storm. There's all, acting like it's a done deal. Well, it isn't, and it isn't necessarily a done deal. And so, and while people are talking about other players and wondering about where prices are coming from, I'll tell you where prices are coming from. Ekitike going to Liverpool. And ironically, the same club that wants to take Isak on the cheap were the ones that have started to push the prices for players like Jackson up by paying what they've paid for Ekitike. You cannot have it both ways. You really cannot have it both ways. And so I think that's where we definitely have to be firm. But Isak, yes, we don't know what the full truth is. There's still a lot of supposition. But even if you take that into account, there's a relationship fracture with a section of the fan base there already that will take a long, long time to come back. And yeah, body language of the players, getting on and off the bus has been a big barometer for the last couple of seasons. But I would be pissed off if I was them, because what was the first thing they did when they were landed in Singapore? Were being asked questions about Isak. And there was nobody from the club there shielding them from that. And I really don't think that's right. It shouldn't be up to our players to be answering those questions. But I think it's they've allowed this to happen, and it feels very self-inflicted because they've not taken the time to understand the history of the fan base for the club, and years of expecting disappointment, and years of expecting of being let down. And when it starts to feel familiar again, surprise, surprise, we've gone down that route. It needs a lot more strength and honest chat and openness and proper leadership. And I really think we're missing that at the moment. And that's effectively on the owners. And we need something more from them right now.
Do you know, Mitch? Sorry, Steve, just to add on regarding Isak. The only official statement we've ever had from the club is that he's not for sale. So how come there's figures being touted about? Can people not see that's their media machine in overdrive to try and reduce it? It's now common knowledge that it's 120, but we want 150. It's not been said. The only thing that's officially come from the club is he's not for sale. So if he really wants to go, hand his transfer request, get your loyalty bonuses taken off you, and lose a few million. Let's see how much you really want to go. And all he wants, and again, I'm not speaking on behalf of him, but my understanding or my view of the opinion is he wants what he was promised. He wants what they were all promised. And not that how can he feel sympathy for someone who's picking up the salary he's picking? But at the same time, when Eddie Howe said no, I genuinely believe it was Craig Hope that said no chance, not Eddie. And if you watch it back, I think Eddie says no. But even if he said no, it's not the sort of thing Eddie Howe would say, no chance. I think what it is he's better off away from the group because it is a media circus. Keep him over there. Let us get on with our job. And let the other people who are meant to be doing their job sort it out. And if it's sorted that he comes back with a pay rise and he's going to commit himself and give 100% to the club, then he's welcome back to the fold. But irrespective of the way the mainstream media are portraying it, or certain journalists are portraying it, well, not even journalists, some of them, should we call them social media influencers, are portraying it. It's like they're doing us a favour by taking our best player. No, they're not. And they're now trying to fix a price that suits them. And that's not how it should be. This is where we need to stand as a club and say, he's ours, he's going nowhere, thanks very much, bye for now. And if he then wants to kick up a fuss, let that be his legacy. And the bad side of me would say make him rotten reserves and he doesn't play in the World Cup, etc. Because we had money to spend, we had money to throw at Ekitike, we've got money to spend. But if we strip everything back and take the emotion out of it, Newcastle United next season is better with Alexander Isak leading the attack. And I can't get away from that.
Okay, big thank you to everybody watching. 1,500 watching across both platforms. And from our perspective, we'll never take that for granted. There was another question sent in by Phil Scott. He says, if the best option regarding the Isak saga was no change and a fully focused and involved player, now not on the table, and the worst is sell with no replacement, what, in your opinion, lads, is the least worst option, as all options appear to be bad? No sale and work on reintegration, sell and successfully reinvest the money. Every option seems to have a downside, Stewie says.
Well, I've said the first one. If we send them not to Liverpool, not for the way they've encouraged this and the way that the lapdogs in the media have pushed it and tried to brainwash people into believing that it's their entitlement that he's their player. He's not. He's our player. He's contracted for 3 years, and that's it. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't say, oh, well, even with this that come out today, where for me, that was them taking a step back. That was them realising, hang on, the big boys are getting involved now. Well, if you tell us he's for sale, we'll make a bid. Well, if you don't make a bid, he's not for sale, is he? We've got nothing to sell. There's no bid to accept or refuse. So you can play your mind games all you want, but trust me, the people at the top of our club, if they get the bit between their teeth, they'll wipe the floor with Liverpool, either financially or not sell them. So if, and I stress if, I know it's a very small word with a very big meaning, but I've got a feeling that behind the scenes things are changing, and it's being brought to light what is, or what has not been going on, should I say, and what should have been taken, they've taken for granted, which is probably their fault, but they've allowed people to maybe bask in their own glory and sit on their hands. And now it's come clear. We all know that Isak's the chairman's favourite player. So ultimately, for me, there's three different scenarios, and the one I'm interested in most is the one that benefits Newcastle United. And for the third time on this show, I will say, fully focused, fully fit Alexander Isak leading our attack is the best thing for Newcastle United going into next season. That's just the way I say it, and I understand and I respect people who think, no, get rid of him, but you're only saying that from what's been said in the media. if we're just going bare facts, he was injured, he couldn't travel. Yes, he's had his head turned, and I understand Eddie Howe wouldn't want him in the club around the players. But they've all got phones. You know what I mean? We live in a digital world now. They've all got phones, so we'll see what happens. But it'll be on our terms, not on Liverpool's terms, not on certain people in the media's terms, to get a little pat in the head and say, look, how we've helped that. Because for me, it's abhorrent what's been going on, and it really is. So to answer the question that you asked, Steve, for me, the best scenario is to get him on side, but the only way they can do that is by showing the ambition that he was promised in the first place. And I was just thinking before we come on air, you know, Elliot Anderson left last year. There've been loads of people leave Newcastle and go to other clubs. Look, Solano did it. He went to Villa and things like that. And why people left? When they score, you think, oh, well, good for you. It would really, 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 really boil my piss to watch him score in a Liverpool shirt next season. It really, really would annoy us because of how it's happened. It would annoy us more than what happened with Andy Cole. Even though the Andy Cole thing was more hurtful, it's the way Man United did. Here's a bid. Okay, it's been accepted. That's how it was because Newcastle had a bigger plan. I think the frustration that we've got is we don't see a plan anymore. We had a vision. We had things in steps and we progressed. But as I used the word terminus before, like we've come to the end of that particular journey, and there's not a new roadmap. So the best result for us is they show Isak that they are still ambitious, they still want to move forward, and they're capable. More importantly, they're capable of moving forward quickly and get him in for 1 year. But next season, he cannot be playing for Liverpool. And people will clip this and throw it at my face if that's what happens. But I'm entitled to my opinion, and I really do not want him playing for Liverpool next season. And I don't think that should be allowed to happen.
Mitch, somebody made an interesting point there before that Salah, of course, was supposed to be leaving Liverpool 4 years ago, and he's still at Liverpool. So these things do tend to run and don't always end up with the player leaving, of course.
There can be, and the point I would also like to jump in here in terms of somebody's just said we're doing the same to us. No, we're not, because we've actually made an official approach to Brentford, discussed the fee, the way you do it properly. And yes, what Wissa's now doing to Brentford, I find exceptionally unpalatable. It makes me think, hang on a minute, is that the kind of player we want in? But it's very different because we've at least made and had the decency of doing it properly. What's going on with Liverpool is there's still no official contract and still no official bid, and it still sounds like tapping up to me, the way they did with Van Dijk. And so for me, it's not the same at all. But this is all very much now. We're seeing, like I said, the bad faith actors, the paid actors, and how everything's playing out. And who is paid and who's in whose pocket becomes ever clearer as every day goes by. But either way, it doesn't all feel like a lose-lose situation for us as fans. And that's the worst bit about it.
Okay, we are halfway through the show. Thank you to everybody for watching. If you're watching on Twitter, please jump over during the break onto YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Time for the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them at www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And if you like listening to us as a podcast, you can go to Sports Social Podcast Network or to iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, then hit the subscribe button. It's free. We do 7 shows a week. Hit the little thumb up under the video, which is the like button, or click share to share to your social media. You can also join the channel on YouTube by hitting the join button for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become an NUFC Matters member, you can go to nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. It's a £25 one-off fee. You get your pen, you get your badge, a key ring, you get your beer mat and your fridge magnet and your membership card, nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk for that. And we have an event early next year, 13th of February 2026, an evening with Beardsley, Waddle and Gascoigne takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. To buy your tickets for that event, go to the box office 0191 243 1171 or Tyne Theatre and Opera House.uk.
And a big thank you to everybody who came along to the Carabao Cup final replay at the Irish Centre. Over 246 quid raised for the Age UK North Tyneside Dementia charity, which is fantastic. But it was good to catch up with quite a few people. And big shout out to James, who drove with his good lady from Ipswich to come along to watch the match and be part of it. So great to see people. And a big shout out to Mark Byers as well, who is on a sabbatical or has been on a sabbatical out in the UK and back home into the Tyne. It was good to see him and his good lady as well. But all in all, a good night, well worth doing. Thanks to everybody for coming. John Askew likes to send an email every now and then. I will read this one out, John, because again, you've took a long time to write it. I was going to have a rest, he says, but having seen Eddie's presser after the Arsenal game, I felt inclined to drop you another email. Things really are quite disturbing at the club at the moment. I hope someone on the Matters team might have some sort of idea about who exactly is making the decisions at St James's Park currently. It certainly isn't Eddie, and worryingly it appears he's hardly consulted, if at all. And judging from his demeanour, it looks like he's had a swarm of angry wasps stuck in his pants. It was all a bit fraught, and so many questions now arise that we wouldn't have dreamed of asking a couple of years ago. That our world-class manager is leaving is clearly apparently now in no doubt whatsoever to some. Many fans might be wondering why, particularly when we aspire to be number one, as our chairman keeps repeating. I don't doubt him for 1 minute, but I have huge reservations about those undertaking the day-to-day running of the club and the associated decision-making process. It would appear that no attempt whatsoever is being made to keep Isak at the club. Many might think that's a disgrace. If he goes to Liverpool, why would he want to give one of our main rivals going forward such a massive boost while at the same time undermining our own situation? Some might say we should use the proceeds to improve our squad, but look at the efforts in the transfer market in the last 2 years. Appalling. In the first 2 years or so, following the takeover, we signed a dozen or so excellent players. Amanda and Mirdad were at the heart of the club and had a great chemistry with Eddie. What have we done in the last couple of years? Well, we all know, don't we, what exactly has changed to make quality income such a problem. The Mitchell situation wasn't good. Questions are rightly being asked about what exactly the motives of the current hierarchy. Helping our rivals at our own expense shouldn't be part of the equation. It seems it's not only fans who are worried. It's clear when Eddie's hacked off, despite his excellent presser style. When asked if there was any chance of Isak joining the tour, which we've already mentioned tonight, he was very clear with his answer. But for me, it was the next bit that was the biggest concern, and that was the reason for this email. He was asked what is going on regarding the Isak situation, and he said he didn't know. He wasn't involved. He was then asked about a new sporting director and chief executive, and again he said he wasn't involved. He didn't look happy. The fact that he was so frank, he can be quite guarded, might suggest frustration with the process. For me, that's why Magpie fans should really be concerned. I'd love to know the main views of the players of the Matters team, and no doubt these will follow in the days ahead. We've got the takeover of our lives, and it was going magnificently for a couple of years. It's critical we don't screw things up now, but recent events have raised valid questions about where we are going and what are the real motives of some members of our board who seem to hold so much influence. We've got to stop helping our rivals. I'm not necessarily referring to the Isak saga. He says, by the way, regardless of whether Isak leaves Are you confident we'll acquire the 4 to 5 first team ready players we need before the end of this window? If Amanda was still here, there'd probably be a real chance, but under the current influences, we've signed 1 player in 4 windows. Could you lads offer any hope and reassurance? Perhaps the Saudis are our main hope in the longer term, but I'm presuming they've got a major say about who's in charge on the ground at St James's Park. I'll go back to my earlier question. Do you have any idea who makes the decisions at St James's Park if it's not Eddie? Thank you, John, for that. What's your feelings about that, Stu? Strong words again from John, as always. Very, very passionate.
Yeah, great email with some very, very good points, and I wish I had the answers for him. And unfortunately, we don't have the answers, but what we do have is opinions. And regarding my little outburst earlier towards Trevor, I'll apologise for what I said, and I shouldn't have said it the way I did. But if you disagree with what I'm saying, just say I disagree. Don't say what you're talking about, because this is not my job. You know what I mean? I take time out of my, and I do have a busy life, to sit here and give my opinion. If you disagree, say I disagree. But when it gets personal, I get personal back. Those who know us very well. I'll never take a step backwards. So hopefully that clears that up. You've got me DM. You use it often enough with your opinion. So getting back to John's email, Eddie Howe, there was something that Craig Hope said in one of his emails, his podcast, that he mentioned regarding Kevin Keegan. Don't lie to them. So if Eddie Howe's got an answer that he doesn't want us to hear, he's just going to say, I don't know. And he's not going to come out with, no, it's a disaster. Imagine he come out with the truth. It's a disaster, or I have no idea what's going on. That's not my job. My job's to do this. He takes a lot on his shoulders. Maybe it's too much at times. But regarding transfers, we will get extra players. But the worry is the longer or the closer it gets to the end of the window, we'll end up overpaying for players that were further down the list than we wanted to get them for. Because people know that we need to spend money. They know that we need players, and they can't hold us to ransom to a point. That's nothing to do with whether Amanda's here, whether Amanda's not. The bigger picture is, and it's all come to play, which, again, on this channel, we've forewarned people for 3 or 4 years. October 21 takeover, November 21, a rule change. It's now playing out how they've wanted it to play out. It's like, whoa, you've got yourself Champions League. Oh, you've won a trophy. Now it stops. Remember what was said. This can't happen again. That was the theme of a meeting between the Red Cartel's senior executives when Leicester won the league. So we know there's a bigger ploy at play. But the transfers, the reason I mentioned Paqueta, Gay, and who was the other one I said? Wissa, because they are Premier League proven. We know Eddie Howe needs to have players come in and be edified, if you want a better phrase, and get up to speed with how he wants things. But if they're already used to the rough and tumble of the Premier League and how it works, you look at, I'm not using this as speculation, it's just what's been said in the media over the last few weeks. Paqueta, I think, would probably need a guy was crying on the pitch last season because he got a yellow card. If anything's going to be good for his mental health, it'll be in the same squad and with his best mate, and to be made to feel loved and made to feel wanted. Yet at the same time, he's the sort of player that can unlock a door. When we're playing the Fulhams, the Bournemouths, the Evertons at home, who just hit us on the break, they do to us what we've done to the bigger teams. He can't pick that lock. He doesn't have to play every game. He won't play every game, but he can come on and make a difference. That's why I think that would be an astute signing for the here and now, because that's what we need. And I think I referenced it last week. Eddie Howe isn't really interested in Newcastle United in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. His job, his lifespan is only as good as the season he's producing. So he wants the best available squad at his disposal. Gay, we know. I think I watched the Celtic game. I watched the game yesterday. We watched every game last season. If Newcastle have a weakness in defence, we know it's pace or lack of. And it's now becoming common knowledge. Absorb the pressure and hit the diagonal ball between the right back and the right centre half, and you'll get some joy. Celtic did twice. And if Celtic can do it, there's teams in the Premier League that'll do it. So we know Tyne will be back in there once he's fully fit. Once Lewis Hall's up to speed and fully fit, Tyne will be back in there, and he's got the pace. But we have to make sure that we have as few weak links as possible. So someone like Gay who can read the game and has pace would be ideal. Whether we get him or not, it needs to be someone similar to that. But my opinion is, if we could get him now, he understands the Premier League and he could come in within the space of 1 or 2 games, not 1 or 2 months. And Wisa is an upgrade on Wilson. And the figures are there. 19 goals last season, none of them penalties. Take Isak's penalties away, I think he might have scored just as many as him in the Premier League. So that doesn't make him anywhere near the player Isak is. It's not, but if we're looking at pure goals, and I'm not saying Isak should be the first starter, but he's someone that can come on and nick us a goal, or he can play another 2 or 3 games if Isak stays and if Isak has a recurrence of a thigh or groin injury, or he just needs resting. So that's the 3 outfield players that if we could go and break the bank for them, overspend if necessary, because that'll then get us in a position next year where we've qualified for the Champions League again, and then it becomes consistent, and then we can start playing in the big boys field rather than trying to get the best of the rest. We might even have a chance of competing with them. But we're being very, very, I can't even think of the word. We're circling on one issue when the bigger problem's there. And it all stems back to the one thing, which is our restriction on spending money. And for those who want to keep criticising PIF, they've take the motion away. They've bought us as a business. They've improved the business. Their balance sheet looks good. If they sold now, which I'm 100% certain they wouldn't, they've made a profit, but not that much of a profit, because they've put money into it, and they haven't put the money in just to give it away and say, okay, we've made a 10% profit over 3.5, 4 years, because you've got to look at the money they've spent so far. Take it on a bit and think, right, how are we going to get better? What can we do? And that opens up so many different channels regarding challenging the Premier League. Do we overspend and take a fine? There's so many things that we can do. There's so many different opinions. But ultimately, and I know I said this many times last week, our main concern is what happens on the pitch. And we can all see that the squad is weaker now than it was last year, numbers-wise and ability-wise. And it was weaker than the year before. And we know we've got a minimum of 8 Champions League games coming up, which any player worth his salt in that squad will want to play in the Champions League games. And we can't afford to forsake the Premier League games. So we have to buy for the here and now. And that's why those 3 players I mentioned that we've been linked with, so I'm not starting off any rumours, those are the 3 players that I would focus on. And if you have to overpay slightly. Because if we don't, the step back would be a huge. And I remember maybe 3 or 4 months after the takeover, when Mitch was in one of his more cheerful moods, he says supporting Newcastle was like a game of snakes and ladders, and someone's just took all the snakes off the board. That's how it felt. Yeah. Remember you said that, Mitch. That's how it felt. But now more and more snakes are getting added on the board, and by us biting to the social media frenzy, we're adding the snakes. So we've got to say we. It feels like I'm preaching to the masses, but personally, I look at everything through not just what I read. I look at why it's been written, who's written it, and why have they written it, and then come with my own decisions from there, rather than just read something and go, "Oh, that's wrong." So with John's email, those are the three players. Yes, we need to improve, and we need to improve quickly, and I think that we will. But my concern is we go closer to the window, we'll end up paying 50 for Wisa when we could be paying 35 plus 5 achievable add-ons. There's so many things we could talk all night about what we could do and what we would do, but I've said enough at the moment, and my throat's getting a bit thirsty, so I'm going to pass it to Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch. The question was very simple. What who do you think's running the show at Newcastle at the moment? We are devoid of two main players.
Can't tell you, can we?
Yeah.
Can't answer that question. Who sanctioned the sale of Longstaff? For example.
Yeah.
We need players in. We're short of experience, and yet there's a sale that's been sanctioned and done. And then when you talk to Eddie about transfers, he plays the I don't know card. Well, somebody must know, but we don't know who that is. I think Ashley had something on the screen before. I think that sums up in 2 sentences why everybody feels the way they do. This looked like it could be one of the most exciting transfer windows in ages, and now it just feels like it's all falling to pieces. And I would say, in answer to John's email, failure in player recruitment this window is not an option. And so whoever is making those decisions better stand up and make some positive ones. With or without Isak. Would I take Isak going and say Sesko and Wissa coming in? Yes, because I think that's a way to replace the goals. We need people who can score goals. Would I take Paqueta? Well, if now else, it would stop them out Bruno in 2 games a season and give away a chance of 6 points against West Ham. But, he would be, seemingly, a wonderful fit into the squad. But I think Eddie's had 2 opportunities to sign him and turn both down. So whether it's not he doesn't fit Eddie's thoughts, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be unhappy to add another Brazilian midfielder to our ranks, GME. So I think there's still a lot of things that need doing, and they need doing pretty damn quickly. Time's ticking, and we need some leadership from the owners. It's that simple for me, and I feel exceptionally let down by them at the moment. I've got to say that. As somebody who has listened to everything they've had to say for a long time, and there's always been that positivity there. And I'm just watching that drain at the moment, and it's very difficult to see to watch that goodwill disappearing. It stings. I'm sure if it stings me, it must sting them. But it's time for some real action, and it's time for some hands on the wheel and leadership, and that seems to be missing throughout the club. And while other things, we could stomach skullduggery with ticketing. We can stomach lip service with the fab and with so-called consultation, which isn't. We can stomach being sold a new range of merchandise every other week if we feel everything's going in the right direction. And we are very directionless at the moment. And that's the frustration. And I totally get it. I'm not going to sit and blindly defend the indefensible. And I genuinely today am disappointed that I've not heard a peep from the chairman when I know he's in the country. I've seen him on the telly. He's at JCB, Golf and Country Club. I know the golf is his pet peeve, his pet sport, and I know that's what he loves. But we genuinely, dear me. I wish it was that simple. It's just not. It's really just not. They put money into the existing training ground. There's discussions ongoing about where the next new training ground could and should be. That's all dependent on local councils. New grounds is dependent on local councils, and they're already receiving petitions from people who are upset about plans that aren't even submitted yet. It's not like it's just, click your fingers and it happens. It doesn't. But I really do think we need some actual indication of leadership and hands on the tiller. We really do.
Yeah, it's a strange scenario. It really is. We have only got 23 minutes left. I do want to read this out from Peter Stott. And those of you who watched the Amigos on Friday would have been scratching their heads at comments by somebody in the chat who seemed to think that Mitch's dad was wanting to execute somebody, which couldn't have been further from the truth. But I did want to read this. Peter Stott says, watching this late, but I've got to say, Darren, you've got what George said totally wrong. He said he was dead to him, not that he wished he was dead, which is something totally within his opinion to say if you listen properly. George even said he wished him no harm. The meat and two veg getting washed down the plug hole was a swipe at how angry he is with Isak. So don't attack someone just because you can't understand what is being said and in what context. George is absolutely fantastic on NUFC Matters. Listen to the whole of what is being said. Don't just jump on words and make them fit what you thought was said. I think a bit more education is needed on your side. No one wished anyone dead. Just my opinion. Team George. Thank you, Peter, for that. I'm sure George will love that. I will make sure George gets that as well. Thank you very much for your comment. Okay, this was a very good question, a very simple question, and it is it's six words, lads, from James Thompson. Do you still trust the process? Trust the process, something we really did push on here during the takeover. I did suggest a new one, lads, in our WhatsApp group. It was very simple. It's called Pray for Progress rather than Trust the Process. But what's your feelings, Stu? Do you still trust the process?
Well, again, it's one of those answers. It's not a yes or no answer, although the question is asking for a yes or no answer. Do I trust the process? Do I trust the ideology of it? Yes, I do. Do I believe that it's been played out the way it should have been played out? It's been carried out the way it was intended? No, I don't. And if I said it different, then I'd be lying to myself and I'd be a hypocrite. But at the same time, if life was so easy and in a straight line, it would become boring. But that doesn't mean things like this are excusable, because they're not. There's decisions being made, or probably more importantly, decisions that haven't been made that have come to this, and a lot of it is self-inflicted. And I touched on one of my earlier speeches that possibly PIF took their eye off the ball and put too much belief and trust and faith in those that they'd left in charge. And could it be a case of when the boss is away, the mice will play? It could be that, or it could be just egos like, yes, I'm this, I'm untouchable. We know there was a power play, we are alleged to know there was a power play to remove Amanda and Maydad. And sometimes once you get the crown, if you look at boxing, you put everything in to be number one. And once you get number one, use Conor McGregor as an example. You know, the life he had to get to where he was, the hardship he went through. And once he got a taste of the big time, his life started to unfold in front of him, in front of the world, hasn't it? So do I trust the process? I do trust the fact that the PAF will rectify it. I genuinely believe that. But we have hit a stumbling block, but it's not insurmountable. It is fixable, and it's probably a lot easier fixed. We as fans are very easily pleased. You know, we're not to the point where we're clapping seals and things like that, but if we sign 2 players this week, the world becomes, in fact, if we sign 1 player, the world will be a better place. But let's just say this week there's 2 signings through the door. By the time you do the Amigos, and I'm not saying now we'll sign 2 players before the Amigos before people start saying that's what I've said.
Probably did.
I know you said it. You said it. But let's if we go along that theory that there's 2 players signed by the time you do the Amigos on Friday, what you're reading in the comments now will be totally different to the comments then. And we're not asking for that much. We're asking for what we've been promised, and that goes back to my 4-page thing I wrote there. At the very, very start, I'll find it. We feel misled. Our hopes have been dashed. We were led, blah, blah, blah. You've all heard it. If not, you can go back to rewind it, whatever you need to do, and go back and listen to it again. The trust in the process thing is a phrase that I've used many, many times. And I'm missing the words for it now because I'm getting myself a bit, not angry, but frustrated. But the ethos of trust in the process is still there, because I genuinely believe we will be in a better place in a year's time, 2 years' time, 3 years' time than where we are now. But my deep frustration is the position that we find ourselves in this day. I think it's the 28th, Monday, the 28th of July. A lot of it's of our own doing. And the people that have been charged with trusting in the process or allowing the process to move forward seamlessly have messed up big time or not capable of doing it. Now, there's a difference between not wanting to do it, not being able to do it. And sometimes you could say, has it been a case of both? Have they not wanted to do it because, we've got where we needed to be and they've sat on the laurels, or they're actually not capable of doing it? And I am a firm believer in those that do make the final decisions will look at this and think, you're not messing with our investment any longer. We will get you back on track. There won't be a public apology, but there could be a signing or 2. It could be a stadium announcement, whatever. But they're in it for the long haul, and I genuinely believe that. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I've lived out here for 12 years, and I've worked, I would say, 70% of the time with Saudi clients. And I'm not talking about those who do run the day jobs. I'm talking about those who spend vast amount of money. And I know that they don't like to make mistakes. And if they do, they'll correct them as soon as possible. Now, I can say that from a personal stance. There's many people out there who haven't got that experience, that knowledge, that interaction that can make it up. But I'm telling you now that they will fix. If it's broken, they'll fix it. If it looks like it's going to break, they'll fix it. So I did say that, you're right, that they'll give enough rope to hang themselves. Well, they've done a great job in doing that. That's why I said earlier in the show, Steve, I wouldn't be surprised if there's changes very quickly, or we'll see things change very quickly, which will benefit us as supporters of Newcastle United.
Okay, trust the process, Mitch. Do you still?
Do I trust the intention that they have and the intention that they've always had?
That's the word, intent.
Absolutely, 100%. Do I believe they've made some mistakes? Absolutely. Do I believe they're now open to criticism? They can no longer hide behind Ashley's problems? Absolutely. It's their mess now. They're no longer the new owners, they're the owners. And they've had enough time and place to make some decisions, and some have been great and some have been not so. And they need to take that criticism with the intent that it's made, as a fan base who is and will always be the club's critical friend and prepared. Have they left certain parts of the club open to undue criticism? Probably, because the club still has to try and function. Is it eroding trust in certain other things? Well, certainly when it comes to ticketing. The more negativity and mistrust and lack of clarity that there exists on many levels will always bring more of that. And again, there's nobody stalking the horses in James's Park with the strength to stand up and say, oi, this is what's going on and this is how it's going to be. I think this sourness, which has appeared ironically on the back of our best season in my living lifetime, and I find that really very sad. But that again comes back to those two sentences earlier from Ashley that I think sums it up perfectly about why everybody's frustrated and why we are at where we are at. And there isn't anybody else to blame for that. It still, let's say it yet again, feels very self-inflicted, and here we are. And it's why emotions run high, and it's why we see some of the fallouts on social media. Christ, we've been blamed for all sorts this week. Fantastic. You know, rolling out the red carpet when you can't buy a ticket. It's St James's Point. It's their fault. Is it really? Is it? Right, okay.
It's our fault as well, Mitch. You're buying some trainers that come on the website in the Middle East first as well.
Was wanting to get them early by so very frustrating. But I do think it's a time for action, and the right actions will turn a lot of feelings around very, very quickly. And who knows, the right actions might be very central to changing how Alexander Isak feels right now.
Mitch, if you look at that comment there from Davey Eddy, the one thing that we've both been consistent on is judge the window at the end of the window. And that's when we can go overboard, because it seems to be a bit premature now with the reactions. And I get the frustrations. But at the end of the window, if we're still down players that we should have for that squad, then we've got every right to attack. We've got every right to question. We've got every right to debate. Unfortunately, the players that we wanted haven't come in at the time that we've wanted to come in, as in the positions-wise. But someone worked out there 33 days. When the Christmas tree's up behind us, that's the 1st of September. That's when the transfer window closes, sorry. So when you see the tree, we'll give our opinions on the window. But ultimately, it hasn't went the way we wanted. But life, unfortunately, doesn't do that. But we're fighting against. It's not Manchester City. It's not Liverpool. It's not Arsenal. We're fighting against restrictions that were put in place purposely to create what's happening now. And it's been said for 3 or 4 years on this channel. It's now bearing fruit. And some people are rubbing their hands a bit. And the next 33 days, we will sign players. Of course, we'll have to sign players. What was the word Eddie Howe used? A phrase? I'm not deluded. He knows what needs to be done. So if we get the players in place and they're better than what we had at the start of the window, then the club has improved. Maybe not the pace we all wanted it to, but it has moved forward. Slightly slower, but it's moved forward. So that's the time to judge it. But as we sit here now, it's not where we wanted to be.
Look, we get the close of that window and there isn't significant squad adjustments made by that time. It'll be open season, and there'll be no about positive spin we can put on that situation, and nor should we.
Yeah.
Nor should we. And I think you allow the trebuchets to release, and they'll be due every single bit of criticism that comes their way. But let's see. It's 33 days.
Sorry, to answer another question, Mitch, I was asked you, who sanctioned the sale of Longstaff? Well, that for me, it's clear, one person, and that was Eddie Howe. Because he's been in talks to say, look, this is what happens. We get this money in and this is what you can go and do. This is the benefit of selling that player. He wouldn't have let Longstaff go if he wasn't told there'll be a replacement coming in that would be better to his squad. So he's had the final say in it, because that's what he's been saying for the last 2 years. He wants to decide who comes in and out of his squad or have the final say. And he's on record saying that. So for those who call me an Eddie Howe apologist, he is the one that said that he wants total control of ins and outs. So he, for me, has sanctioned the release of Sean Longstaff. But also, I think he's the one that says, I don't want Isak to leave. And that's, again, been backed up by the chairman. So if he does leave, then we could be having it. Well, I personally, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Mitch. He's more than capable of doing that for himself. But I'll personally be having a different opinion on what I've given so far this evening.
Himanshu asked us this on Twitter. He says, why did we waste bids on Gahey when we could have wrapped up Trafford last season? He says, it's been in my head for a while. So Himanshu asked that on Twitter. What's your feelings on wasting bids on Gahey? I mean, that was probably the start of all this negativity in the transfer window. You know, that was publicly played out, but our entire transfer window so far has been publicly played out, Stu, as well. It's a bit frustrating.
I can understand the question, but you said it yourself, Steve. It was paid out publicly. Where I've seen some in the last few weeks that we bid 70 million for Gay and got knocked back. No, we didn't. It's, for me, whether it's information we've received or it's been written publicly, the most that we went to was 55 million, and that's what we said we'd give. And they kept moving the goalposts. They then said we want 70. They made this a Dutch auction and said keep moving the goalposts. We want 55 million, and that's where we went to. But it was even wanted to mention his name, the man in charge of Crystal Palace, who forgot to read his emails, who never makes mistakes, and wanted to curry favour with the cartel for some reason. He wanted to make it public knowledge. Maybe he wanted an auction for the players to come in, and that's his prerogative, where he could say, these have bid this, who wants to come in? And it backfired on him. But for me, I personally would go in again for Gay. But again, according to the press, his heart and head's in Liverpool. What happens if Liverpool don't go for him? What happens if we offer him more money? What happens if we offer him a captaincy? You know, there's so much that can be changed. And I think, well, personally speaking, what really gets to me is the way we should just lie down and accept being told that what we want is you're not going to have it. That makes you want it more. And I think I've used an analogy before for like those who smoke. You sleep for 8 hours. You can smoke. You can go without a cigarette for 8 hours. You get an airplane for 2 hours and told you can't smoke, or you want to smoke because you've been told you can't have it. And that's what's happening with us. So regarding Gay, that was a player that was targeted to improve our squad, and he would have improved our squad last year. Without a doubt, he'd improve our squad this year as well. With Trafford, it come to the point where I don't understand where people thought it was new, because maybe I'm wrong. I was of the opinion it was common knowledge that Manchester City had a sell-on clause. So they've used that to get the player that we wanted. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to get everyone that we do want. Yes, we could have got him, but I know I said last week, imagine we go out and then we spend 40 million on Trafford. Oh, another bloody keeper. You wouldn't spend that. What a waste of money. He's not even that good. He couldn't keep his place in the Burnley team last time he was in the Premier League. He's a championship keeper at best. You know, so whatever happens, I think sometimes the white noise has to be ignored, or at least look at it and look at the reasons behind it. But with Trafford, have we missed a step? Only time will tell. If he comes on to be outstanding for Manchester City and becomes a regular for England, then fine. We bid 31 by all accounts. Man City got him for 27 because they activated the clause that they were entitled to activate. And I get it, had we paid the money earlier in the window, but we said it last time, if my auntie had wheels, should be a bike. It's all ifs and buts, but I don't think goalkeepers are most pressing position at the minute where we need to improve, unless they can double up with goal scoring as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the transfer window madness. It's continuing, and it will do until September, Mitch. But yeah, the Gahey question and the
Gahey situation was frankly quite embarrassing, and we really stuffed that up big time. And Parish, I think, showed some of his true colours towards us as a club. regarding Trafford, I was told last year that the problem wasn't about amounts, it was about how it was going to be paid and whether they would take one of our keepers back in the other direction as part of the deal. The fact that Dubravka was initially left behind while that was being sorted would suggest that that was a breakthrough that was made, only then to see the parity clause activated. And therefore, once you take the fee into account, the fact that you had a sell-on which comes off, and the fact that they sold for a certain amount comes off, that's why they get them for a significant amount less than what we were talking. But you would have thought somewhere in those 2 series and rounds of negotiations, somebody would have picked up on the fact that actually he was open to a return to Man City, and that effectively made all of the discussions redundant. And again, who's making this Don Quixote-like charging at windmills which aren't to be moved? And that again comes back to leadership in that side of the process and who's managing this situation. And exceptionally frustrating, because again, we don't have all the information. We'll have what the press tells us. You'd hope there's a bit more subtle nuance to that, but really, really super frustrating in both counts. Like I say, with a goalkeeping room that I personally would have cleared everybody out of ages ago, and set a reset on it. And Trafford seemed to be, one of those players that tick those boxes for Eddie Howe. But another goalkeeper who's been relegated before. And if you keep buying players who've been relegated, you end up with a squad full of players who've been relegated, and that's not a squad that you want.
Yeah. Okay, I do want to ask one last question. It might take us slightly into extra time, and it's from Kurt. He says, lads, do you think we're getting desperate now, considering all our targets have gone elsewhere? Using Ramsdale as an example, I think we're scraping the barrel, Stu.
I'd hate to associate us with the word desperate, but the media narrative would suggest that. I don't think we're getting first choice, second choice, but I think I hinted at it before. We've aimed for the stars and we didn't reach. And there's nothing wrong with ambition, as I touched on with Isak. And if our biggest fault this window is we've been over-ambitious, then I'm all in for that, as long as there's a plan B or plan C. And at the moment, plan B seems to be not talked about. So maybe we have to start looking at plan C. But again, on this channel and on many other Newcastle podcasts, many have mentioned that Newcastle had choices A, B, C, D, E for certain positions. So we'll have to work ourselves down the list. And unfortunately for us, we're not in the position of strength we would like to be, where we can get choice A for each position. But if choice E is still better than what we currently had, then we'll progress, just not at the rate of knots we want to. But the most important thing is that we do improve the squad. And I get the word desperation, not now, because we're sitting on the 28th of July. If we're sitting on the 28th of August and we've still only had Elanga through the door, then that would be desperation. That's when we're held to ransom. But if we look at who we've been married up with is our biggest rivals to challenge the top 6. It's been Aston Villa. We've spent no money this summer, not one. We've spent 50 odd million. They've spent nothing. And Forest's biggest signing so far has been keeping the player that they had. Maybe that could be our biggest signing, but we know we're going to spend more. And I'm not a chess player. It's too complicated for me. I like to keep things simple. So I'm more of a drafts player. So I think we're in a position where desperation, even if we can't show it. Yeah, that was the best thing that made me happy this weekend. We can't show we are. But if you look at the documentary and how Amanda showed her negotiation skills for Anthony Gordon, I would imagine if we'd not signed Gordon, that wouldn't have been shown in the documentary. However, there is clubs out there who do need to sell, who do need the money. And it's a game of who blinks first. And I talked about Brentford being praised for it. Crystal Palace were praised for it last year. Yet we're getting criticised for stopping Alexander Isak. We're in a position now where we're not as bad as we've actually probably believed we are. And we're not as good as we want to be, but we do want to be good. The minute we start accepting it, that's when it becomes a problem. And that's why I've wrote on there, faith is a new first, because it's called cause and reaction to get a reaction, and I believe that we will get the players. Desperation, not now. 1 month's time from now, yes, we'll be desperate if we haven't improved. But I think there's players, once the top 4 already have made their signings, then we are the next best option, aren't we? Yeah. So which player wouldn't want to come to us if that's the case? We do have Champions League. We do have a trophy. We do have a fantastic fan base. We are a project that is on the up. Despite what's been said and despite what's been written over the last month to destabilise us, we have shown that much growth. And the biggest compliment we can get, Steve, is that they're talking about us. 4 or 5 years ago, we were nothing. Not even worth a mention. Now we're constantly on national airwaves. We're constantly on the lips of these national reporters and their social medias. We are coming. And it may not be at the pace we want it to be, but we are coming. So I think we will get the players in. And there will be anyhow type players where he'll see something that we don't. But who would remember when we bought Isak? Oh, that's a lot of money for that player. That was a risk. Bruno, what's his second name? How do you say that? We were signing players that we didn't know who they are. I know there's some people that will claim they know every single player in Europe and South America, etc. But for the vast majority of Newcastle fans, this ties up with trust in the process. They'll get players that will improve the squad. We all want it here and now. And if we can't get here and now, let's get some here and then some for now and then some for a bit later. But the squad will be better by the 1st of September than what it is now. And that's all we can ask for. And that's all we asked for at the start. It's just been a horrible journey so far.
Okay, Mitch, last question to you there.
I think let's wait until the end of the window before we start saying that we've been scraping the barrel. I think that's where we have to be with that. Failure is not an option. Failure is not an option. It's that simple. And I think if they're not getting that message in the halls, corridors of power, whoever is walking them, then they need to pretty damn quickly.
Great stuff, great show. Honesty from the lads as always. Sutty says, lads, I just want to say thank you for this show. It's been a shitty transfer window so far, and particularly this past week with all the speculation. You've put the current situation at the club into perspective. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And thanks to everybody for watching. It is hard to stay positive, but I think as Stu rightly said, just look at where we were 4 or 5 years ago. Nobody was talking about Newcastle. Now we're one of the first teams on anybody's lips. We are coming, and it might not be at the pace that we wanted to go at, but you know what? We are coming. And let's just remember, we are still the current Carabao Cup holders. Back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with the Fans Forum. Looking forward to that. For now, it's thanks to Stu, thanks to Mitch. If you're watching on Twitter, jump onto YouTube, subscribe to NUFC Matters. 7 shows a week, it makes sense. Take care, lads. See you.
Cheers, everyone.
Have a good evening, everyone. Cheers.